What's up, guys? Welcome to an all-new episode of Convos on the Pedicab. It's Thanksgiving Eve. We're being extra careful. We're outside. We're more than 6 feet away from each other. We don't have our mask on because, breathing fresh air is essential. That being said, I got a very special guest. I got Alexis Ferguson. She's a good friend and volunteer with Vanessa Fuentes' city council campaign. If you guys are unaware, Vanessa Fuentes is now the new city council member in District 2 in Southeast Austin, zip code 78744, 78617, 78749, parts of 45. It's a huge district. Vanessa is now the representative, and I'm just very honored and very happy that I have a chance to talk to one of her good friends and one of her volunteers, because you need positive back and forth discussions to help move the city forward, especially with how hurt we've been throughout the virus and a lot of the civil unrest that's going on. Before we get started, we got to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, 10th Planet Austin, 10PATX. Get woke and improve your jiu-jitsu at the same time. Like I said just now, there is a lot of civil unrest going on right now, and there's no better time than now to learn how to intelligently defend yourself by attaining proficiency in a grappling-based martial art like jiu-jitsu. They also have MMA classes. They have Muay Thai. We have strength and conditioning. It's a phenomenal gym with phenomenal people. Everybody's very open to a lot of new ideas. It is an extremely positive place. So, if you guys are in Southeast Austin, we're located on 71 between 71 and I-35, 10 PATX. We also have a 10th Planet in Round Rock. So please come by and check us out. Anyway, Alexis, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me. We had a great conversation on Election Day.
Election Day, yes, Election Day.
Yeah, that was a good convo. I was really impressed with, you talk about civility and civil unrest. We had probably the best civil conversation about politics that I've ever had.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And these things are getting lost on people because, especially with these stay-at-home orders, these stay-at-home orders are literally creating division amongst people. Like, they're causing people who to fall into bubbles because they're not exposed to new perspectives because everybody's sheltered in their own place and in their own home. And then it just turns, and then everyone's also scared about what's going to happen to them financially. They're scared about what's going to happen socially, and they're afraid that this virus could lead to new forms of authoritarianism, which I'm scared of that too.
Yeah.
People are scared of losing their small businesses. They're scared of their 401ks plummeting. Everybody's scared right now. Everyone's on edge. And it doesn't, and with that being said, it leads to these very vitriolic and abrasive type of conversations, which are really harmful to the general public right now. So the purpose of this podcast is to do the opposite and actually have normal, sane, civil, productive discussions with one another to help move us forward positively.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that I found with people that were open to having conversations with me or to understanding why I might have felt a certain way about a certain thing happening in the world was that the people that were genuinely interested in understanding dropped their guard and were like, tell me, and I think that we talked a little bit about this. I think that we've lost that connection and understanding that just because you feel something about some way about something doesn't mean that you can't feel another way about a different subject, or that maybe we don't have commonalities. I mean, I felt like we had a lot more in common than we thought we would when we started the convo.
I kind of agreed with that. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times people have opinions because they might just not know. There might just be certain things that they don't know about.
Yeah, and you talked about the bubbles, and I think that the bubble is this thing that probably scares me the most. I don't come from a place of fear a lot of times, but after realizing, especially after lockdown and after realizing, Brian, my husband's here on the sidelines, and Brian and I would have these conversations, and he has one bubble source, and I have another bubble source, and I'm like, what are you talking about? There's so many times I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and it would be like the big combo happening on one side of the spectrum, right? And it was really fascinating to me because then you start unraveling Social Dilemma, the film.
I saw that. Yeah, that was...
and it's like you're like, oh crap. Sorry, am I allowed?
No,
to
you're allowed to say whatever you want. This is a free pie. Yeah.
And you just realize really quickly that perspective is everything, right? So if my perspective on an issue or an event or something happening is based on my experiences and all the things that I've taken in over the years and the information that I'm getting, then how could I not see it the way that I see it?
Well, everybody has their confirmation biases.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing confirmation bias get solidified and solidified and solidified more and more. And there's got to be an openness to new ideas and new perspectives. And that's one of the things I try to do. And it's that I try to get people from all walks of life to come talk to me. Like I had a guy from InfoWars talk to me.
Yeah.
And then I immediately had like Morgan Witt, like the super progressive, like city council candidate, come on right afterwards because I don't want this to be an echo chamber. I want this to be, I want multiple perspectives on the show to talk to me. And then you're also going to realize that we have a lot more in common than you think.
Yeah.
And that's another important thing that people need to understand.
If you can sit at the table with somebody, even if you're like, just totally on the opposite ends of the spectrum, and go in not expecting to answer questions, but go in understanding that you're going to learn by listening and taking a pause, because you might learn something new. I debate with my dad all the time. And what I found was he's my safe place, right? Because he's my dad. So, and we can talk about like really deep issues, and he'll give me all the talking points, and I might throw back talking points to him. But then at some point, we come to a place where we respect each other, and when you don't respect another person, you can't really go into that level of understanding that you can like set everything else aside. And I think that's, people have lost respect for one another because of the info they're getting and that echo chamber that they live in.
Yeah, 100%. But how do you know Vanessa?
Okay, so I met Vanessa through several organizations that we've been volunteering with and been on the board of directors for the last, I think, like 10 years, maybe a little less than that, because time flies, right? I think it has been a decade though, and she's amazing. And you were asking me like, why'd you volunteer and where are you from? And I was like, oh, I don't live in Austin. I live in Cedar Park. And you're like, you came down here? And I was like, yeah, because I really have been blown away by what she's done with the work that I've done with her.
Such as what?
So we're on the board of directors for the Hispanic Women's Network of Texas.
And what do you guys? What do they do?
What is this? It's an organization that's based, that was based back in the 70s to help women have a network. Because if you recall the Good Old Boys Network, if you had a friend who had a job at let's say it's a state agency or a law firm or whatever.
Well, that's anything. Anybody who has a network, you hook your friends up because that's normal.
Well,
like
but you do it through organizations like that. Like, what if you didn't know everybody in town, or what
that's
if
true.
No,
So I understand
this organization was based to help us connect, so that we could have a network to lean upon and to endorse each other and really lift each other up. So it's a nonprofit. Again, it's been around for I think 30 plus years. So 35 years.
So it like helps Hispanic women get jobs and network and do stuff like that?
It helps Hispanic women not only, understand, we focus on education, civil things that are happening around, like volunteerism is big for us, and really engaging in the community.
That's good.
Yeah.
I support that. That's positive.
Thank you.
And you've known Vanessa for like 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's your friendship with her been like?
Oh, she's great. So we socialize within our circles. We did get to go to her wedding, so I'm that close enough to get invited to her wedding.
And she got married kind of recently or something?
Last year, December 31st.
Well, shit, congrats. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she brand new, newlywed. Then she'd worked for the Heart Association for a long time as an advocate for health.
But did she have a medical degree or anything like?
No.
So what did she do with the Heart Association?
So with the Heart Association, you do lobbying. You advocate for that type of work.
So she was lobbying companies on behalf of the American Heart Association.
She was lobbying a legislature.
Okay,
so
to donate.
Not to donate, to help get the issues that, help people have good, sustainable, healthy initiatives.
So she would lobby legislators on behalf of the Heart Association. Mm-hmm. To get certain laws passed.
As I understand it,
okay.
yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So she's a go-getter, and so when she decided to run, I said, just let me know what you need. So That's how that happened. That's how I got to meet you.
Yeah, that is, and I'm really happy about that. So I was actually running too. And I had no interest in wanting to like run for public office at all, like zero. I did mayor 2 years ago. That was kind of a little bit of a trolley candidacy, but I mean, I had fun. I had fun doing it, but it was kind of like the best experience that I never wanted to do again.
Yeah.
But then these lockdowns happened.
Okay.
And ultimately, I was fine riding my pedicab, doing jiu-jitsu, spending time with my girlfriend, and making rap songs about conspiracy theories. Like, I really did not want to do anything else. Like, I was very happy with the life I had. I had no interest in wanting to do anything else. Like, I was comfortable. I was good. I liked the trajectory of how my life was headed.
Yeah.
But then lockdowns happened.
Yeah.
And then protests happened.
Yeah.
And then, the city was giving mixed messages in regards to gathering when you compared being able to, go to work at your job versus going out and protesting in large groups in the midst of a deadly pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then you factor in, that none of the small business venues, especially bars, restaurants, and music venues, were getting any assistance whatsoever.
Yeah.
Even our shop, we have to still pay permitting fees for cabs we're not barely even using. It really felt as though the entire city council, specifically our mayor, is just giving a giant middle finger to everything that makes the city special. And so I didn't want to sit there and take it because I love Austin. This place has allowed me to grow into the person that I am. And I finally found a job that I'm good at, that makes me really happy, that gives me personal fulfillment. And I still feel as though the mayor and our city are trying to literally take it away from me. So I fought back.
Yeah.
And I ran.
Yeah.
And I ran a much more serious campaign, and I had a series of issues that I felt we need to actually address immediately to move forward, and then do it in a way that's non-divisive. And then Casey came along, and Casey, had a lot of the same ideas as me, and we agreed with a lot of stuff. But he's been in the community for years, his entire life, and he ran before. And there was a lot of support behind Casey, justifiably, and none behind me, because I just jumped in August, and I didn't really have that much community involvement because I had no interest in wanting to run or do any of this.
Yeah.
But Casey liked my ideas. He was popular, and I figured, you know what? Drop out and help your boy win, because that's literally like you winning.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how
that's
that all
awesome.
got brought about.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, you definitely, I think community involvement is really important. And, what I know you're curious a little bit about Vanessa's stuff, and I don't know all the ins and outs of her policies, but what I do know is that she's dedicated to where she lives and improving it and making it a better place.
And so I'm going to give you my honest opinion about Vanessa and about David, right?
Okay.
So when I first jumped into the race, I really did not like either of them.
No.
I really did not like these people at all. I still probably don't like David because I never really interacted with David. Mm-hmm. And then David got fucking wrecked. The most well-funded candidate in the district got fucking annihilated.
Man. Yeah.
He didn't even come in. He came in third. Like, Casey still beat the most well-funded candidate in the district, right? But I did not like them, And the reason I didn't like them is because they just were establishment candidates. And to me, the City Hall establishment was pro-lockdown. It was pro-lockdown, pro-Code Next, pro-homeless.
Yeah.
They weren't addressing, they were mismanaging our budget, and the way they addressed our whole police stuff, that's another story entirely, which all ties back into how they're neglecting our small businesses.
Yeah.
So I really did not have any love for any of them.
Okay.
But, I've started talking to the people on Vanessa's staff.
Yeah.
And they were all really cool people.
Yeah.
And genuinely speaking, and I still don't know Vanessa, so I don't have a full, I don't have an opinion of her yet, but it's definitely improved. And I think the reason why it's improved is because, you ever heard the phrase, you're the average of your 5 closest friends? Mm-hmm. So if you're going to talk to the people that Vanessa's been around that are helping her, and they're all really cool people, chances are, and then if these people are receptive and open to listening to you,
yeah,
chances are Vanessa's probably going to be open and receptive to actually listening to some of these concerns. And as long as these concerns and issues get addressed, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I think she's focused a little bit on I know for sure that one of the things that makes her really great is that she does want to go into and understand. She doesn't come in with preconceived notions on what has to be based on her own experience, because I think she realizes that people have different needs in the community, right? And there's not really one thing or one person that's better than the other. If you're all part of the same neighborhood, it's for the good of the neighborhood. So the issues that have been brought up probably at her taco talks that she did, around every Tuesday, I think is what she would do, is go to taco trucks in the morning.
Does she still do that? Because I'll talk to her, because now she's going to actually be elected. It's probably more important now that you have these talks.
I bet she will.
Before you actually get into office, don't stop now that you've won. You better keep these going.
Yeah, I don't think she will. I think she's committed, and I think that that's the whole thing that made the difference, right? Is that she was really into getting to hear and listen and understand what were the needs. I think she had an idea going in. I think the flooding was part of the lack of funding and things that were happening every time. You remember that big historical flood in Onion Creek?
Well, I wasn't around then, so people were asking me those questions, and I'm like, I didn't. I literally just moved to Austin, so I did nothing when it came to this.
Because it was terrible. That was Halloween, not too long ago. I guess right before you got here.
I moved in 2013 in August, so I was totally out of touch with all of everything.
And then just the lack of healthcare options, especially during COVID, for you talk about the Hispanic population in Austin, and most of it being on this side of 35, and most of it being underfunded. Yeah.
So there's also density too. There's also generally speaking, and these are doctors who were working close with the Biden administration. We're saying that communities of color were more likely to get COVID. Not only because there's more essential workers, but there's also more intergenerational living, and they're more likely to live in densely clustered areas. And our city is trying to create a housing model based on urban density, based on overly densifying Austin, while we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's just the most irresponsible thing that you could do. And
this is where you're talking about the developers, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about slowing the spread of COVID, but then why are you creating a housing model based on density? That's literally how you expedite COVID. And then they're trying to do this rail, and you have an infrastructure project that's going to create a 25% tax increase in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a recession. You're going to create a huge tax increase while these small businesses are getting wrecked, while you're offering no help to them, and then you're going to tax them by a 25% increase on top of that.
What would you do? What would be the first thing if let's just say all the cards were different and you landed in office? What would be the one thing that you think would be necessary to help the small businesses get back on their feet?
You would take the money. So there's a few things, right? You have to do an audit to find wasteful spending.
Yeah.
But the city has spent, I could count, the city has spent at least $90 million on things that they could have use a portion of to help our small business, right? I'm not going to say it's bullshit, but they spent $90 million on other projects that they deem more important, okay? So $60 million in next year's budget is going to homelessness, okay? And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Where is that? Where is that really going?
Yeah.
And it just seems like the more money you put into that, the more you just increase the homeless population. Then you have to spend more money, and then you give money to your buddies in the nonprofits, and you pay for administrative costs. And there just seems like it's a recipe for just corruption. Then you have your developer buddies have to build more houses for these people. It just does not seem like it's really designed to help homeless people. So there's homelessness, right?
Yeah.
They spent $20 million trying to do improvements for the Doherty Art Center. Dude, I mean, was your first experience in did you have any fond memories of listening to live music or performances in Austin? Are they at all related to going to the Doherty Art Center?
Are they related? Well, I like the Doherty Art Center, but
right. But are those the memories you're gonna tell your kids and grandkids about, or tell you man, I had this dude. The Doherty Art Center was lit. You're not gonna say that. You know what I mean? You're not gonna these aren't you don't make everlasting memories at the Doherty Art Center. You make those memories at Mohawk, at Stubbs, at the Continental Club. Those are the things that you need.
Yeah.
And then on March 30th, I saw something on Twitter. One of those
See,
FIO
I'm getting
things.
the education now.
And they spent $10 million on some drag queen organization on March 30th. And this was right when they closed everything, and when no one was even getting unemployment, they gave $10 million to drag queens, which I don't even have a problem. And I'm not saying this to be prejudiced, right? I have no problems with that stuff. I go to drag shows; they're fun as hell.
Yeah.
But to spend $10 million on that when, you're literally telling entire industries that they can't operate.
Yeah,
that is
I think-
selfish and callous.
I think a lot of times, and pardon me for my ignorance here, but I think a lot of times the balls are rolling and then shit hits a fan. Like COVID, nobody saw that. I mean, I didn't see that coming the way it came. I mean, it's like, and these are the times when you have to have a contingency plan, and you also have to have, the plan B in place. Like, what do we do? And I don't think a lot of people for a really long time have had any plan Bs in their head, especially in Austin. I mean, look at all the cranes.
Yeah. Okay. And then Alexis, here's another fun fact too. Mm-hmm. When the city decided to defund $170 million cumulatively from APD, mm-hmm. guess how much money went to small businesses?
None?
Yeah, zero. Zero.
Wait, am I supposed to get this right?
Yeah, not a penny went to helping these small businesses. So, like, if I were to be in charge, I would make sure that money would go to help these businesses. Like, that would be, like, the main thing that I would focus on is helping these venues stay afloat.
I look, I totally get it. I'm all for, I'm an entrepreneur, so I totally, I get it. And I feel like, everything has their place. And I wonder how, as a community, instead of relying on the city council and all them to like come up with ideas, where's the think tanks on this side? You know what I mean? I feel, this is just my opinion, is, when COVID hit, and you remember the stories of like the farmers that couldn't get their,
the supply chains are getting all fucked up too. Yeah.
And like, I'm like, we have supply chain experts. Like, where are you guys? And they were starting to step up, and then they've done things. They've done amazing things as private citizens going, we got a problem. We got to solve this, not waiting on government to come in and step in. Right.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. I think it's time for us as Americans and, Austinites, or, whatever Cedar Park's called. Texans like to step up and like,
we're all neighbors.
We got to cover each other's back.
You need more people like myself on commissions and boards. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And I need to get Vanessa to come on this Pedicab and talk to me, because I feel like she'd be receptive. She'll talk to me.
Yeah, totally.
She seems like she's pretty cool. And her husband was super cool too. I like her husband a lot. Her husband's awesome.
I'll tell you this about her, is like, she wants to know more, and she's got her opinions and her ideas, but she's also like really great at working through and working with, I mean, look, you get a bunch of women in the room that are really like alphas, and you all try to do this, you're all trying to do the same thing for the same cause, but you got alphas in the room. Somebody's got to like take a step back and say like, hey, like, let's get together and not work against each other.
Agreed.
So I feel like that's what she'll bring.
I hope so. I think ultimately what I've noticed too, and me and Casey both noticed, was that Vanessa liked a lot of our ideas.
Yeah.
And she liked them so much so that she started using them in her own speeches.
Well, there you go. Well, and you never know. You guys might have been on the same page from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
You
just don't know that.
Because I remember both of us were very much against the rail.
Uh-huh.
And she seemed like she was pro rail in the beginning. And then I all of a sudden heard her staffers telling people not to vote no on Prop A. So I'm like, I'm not like, you could look at that from two standpoints, right? You could look at it to say like, hey, they're copying us, or hey, she's listening to us.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it from the standpoint, I'm like, Vanessa seems like she liked our idea so much that she was using that she was
Do we need to take a time out?
She liked our ideas so much that she was using those ideas within her own campaign. Then that means that she's going to be receptive to listening to me, which actually makes me feel good about wanting to talk to her more.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think she set up those taco talks or did any of the things that she did to like reach out or volunteer for the food banks or do all the things to roll up her sleeves to to placate the cameras. You know what I mean? Like, that's who she really is.
I think it's genuine. But look, my take on all this, Alexis, is that. Vanessa liked my ideas, and she liked Casey's ideas, and it's it's refreshing and it's good, and hopefully like I just want to be able to have a I don't want the relationship with Vanessa to end now that the election's over. I want those ideas to like hopefully get implemented, and I just want to be able to offer like positive input because these are ideas that she liked too, and let's get them done.
Yeah, no, I think you're in the neighborhood. It's all good in the hood.
What's her stance on like the whole homeless stuff? And
I knew you were gonna ask me these things. I don't know.
I mean, because you were volunteering, did she like ever bring any of that stuff up to you, or like what's?
I mean, she brought up stuff that was definitely her, what they were talking about, but I don't know all the ins and outs of everything. So you should talk to her. Because then she can give you a more comprehensive.
Because I know you saw a lot of tents while you were.
Yeah, there's a lot of tents. There's a lot of tents, and then you get to my county and there's none. So.
And there's none.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask me what I think.
Yeah, sure. What's your take on all that?
I think it's a really hard conversation to have because, of course, homelessness is one of those things that you just, you have empathy for the people that are homeless. God, thank God, I don't have to worry about that. I have family and friends that would take me in if something were to happen. And so I think that you have to, it's a one of those gray areas, so to speak, where, I mean, it's tough to see. But there's more help needed. Like there's more things that are, having to happen, than just dealing with the fact that people are camped out, So I know it's a big, giant issue that, but does it bum me out to see Austin look like that?
It's
Heck,
bad.
It does. Yeah.
Well, because I don't think that what they're doing is really about helping homeless people. I think this is about helping developers.
Yeah, you were telling me that, and that was really interesting to me, and it was really one of those things where I was like, man, because I think what I was talking about is like, do I donate? Do I give? Do I give to organizations that help homeless people? Yeah. Have I ever rolled my window down and helped somebody out? Absolutely. Someone's hungry, I'm going to feed them.
Of course.
But I think it doesn't look normal. Like, where do they get the tents?
Well, and it's also being weaponized. It's also being weaponized, right? And it's like, have you been following the District 6 race? Because that's kind of close. So,
tell me about it.
There's this guy named. There are two people running, right? And there's this guy named Jimmy Flanagan, who's the current council member, and he's just like developer Jimmy. There's an article written about the Bulldog about how he's totally mismanaged his finances. He's received more money from developers than any candidate in the entire city of Austin.
Yeah.
And it was him, Greg, and then developer Dave were number 3. They rounded out the top 3, right? And then there's Mackenzie Kelly, who's like the super hardcore conservative, right? And she was the president of Take Back Austin, and one of the things that they were trying to focus on was like literally bring the camping ban back into Austin and back into effect.
Yeah.
And look, I don't like agree with like hardcore conservatism.
Yeah.
But I've talked to Mackenzie. I've hung out with her numerous times. Like she's a really nice person. She's receptive. She listens to people.
Yeah.
And you also can't have the homeless situation cannot be exploding like it is right now. Like you have to.
It's
like,
really weird.
Like
to
if
me.
you're not going to have a plan to address homelessness and address decriminalizing homelessness, and there's not going to be actionable plans set forth afterwards, you're going to get this. And a camping ban is still better than this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I moved here to Austin in '95.
But yeah.
And there was a camping ban that was implemented in '94, I think.
Yeah, and it was a lot cleaner, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally different.
And I could go into how I feel about the homeless stuff. My main concern more is economic.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
As somebody
on
who
that.
works downtown, it's like when you see a ton of homeless people downtown, less people want to travel and go out downtown and spend money and be as like open and be as loose, and that affects my ability to make a living.
Yeah.
And then sometimes like at night, if there's like a female in the shop, I'm not gonna leave. I'm gonna have to stay with her to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's stuff like that you got to deal with, but.
Well, I used to feel really safe, you know?
But anyway, what I was saying about Mackenzie and Jimmy is that Mackenzie's very much in favor of rescinding that, like repealing that, like getting the camping ban back, like repealing the ordinance, right? And getting the camping ban back on to where it was. And then Jimmy's not. And so everyone's now calling Mackenzie like they're trying to just say, hey, you're anti-homeless.
Yeah,
and
I
so
think
like what they'll
harsh,
do is
man.
like what these people do is like if you disagree with like the developer friendly narrative at City Hall, they'll call you like anti-homeless, or they'll call you a racist, or if you like think that like if you're not happy with how they defunded APD, they'll just say you're like supporting white supremacy, or that you like are a Proud Boy or that you're all these things, and that's not like that's really divisive. That's not how you bring people together.
Exactly.
Like you have to have like a normal discussion about why you feel a certain way, so that there's a healthy middle ground in this. And
which is what we were talking about at the beginning. Is like you don't have to broad brush somebody. I get why people will say certain things like, oh, if I see this, I think you're this, and I'm like. But then you got to look deeper because maybe their experience has been just really harsh. But I just until I'm proven otherwise, you've got to give people the benefit of the doubt, and then you make your harsh judgments. But to paintbrush somebody just because they want to see something different
because they disagree with stuff, it's very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And then there was this motorcycle group called like the Wind Therapy Freedom Riders, right? And so I don't know if you paid attention, but there was like this like pro cop rally like right before Election Day, and there was like a Recall Adler parade and all that stuff. And to be honest, like considering how he's handled the pandemic and the middle finger that he's given to our small businesses and our live music venues, he should be recalled. Yeah. Like he should not be in office anymore after how he's handled this crisis.
How much time does he have? 2 years?
He has 2 years, but like there's a recall petition circulating right now. And if you live in Austin, if you live in one of the 10 city council districts, you should sign it because of the fact that you're enabling vagrancy, the way in which you defunded the police departments, your lack of support for small businesses. Actually, you're almost like aiding and abetting in the destruction of small businesses, if you want my honest opinion, with all the actions that you're taking. Yeah. Like this is an attack on the awesome way of life. What he's doing. This is my opinion. Opinion, right?
Yeah. No, I got it.
And I'm not saying this from like a place of hate. Like I've interacted with him. Like I like him as a human being. Like he's cool. Like we're both Jews. I'd love to spend Passover with him. Like it'd be fun, But you, from a standpoint of you doing your job, like the way that he's been doing his job lately, I feel threatened as somebody who works in the service industry and is a regular person trying to live here. I literally feel threatened by his actions.
And those are things that I think are really important to listen to as part of his constituency.
100%. Sorry if I'm like ranting.
That's okay.
But there was this parade and there was this like pro cop rally, right? And a bunch of like these Proud Boys like came in and photobombed the photo. And they had like the OK sign, right? And the whatever.
There's a bunch of Proud Boys in Austin?
Yeah, I guess so.
Dude.
I guess so. And then they said they were all white supremacists and all that shit. But I'm just like, there's also like a lot of people like, there's also like a lot of black people and Spanish people who are in those groups too. Which is kind of, it doesn't mean that you condone it, but it's just people need to be like, it's not white supremacy if you have black people. Like that's like, what are you going to have Clayton Bigsby is like, in the group and shit? Like it makes no sense. But they basically like lumped Mackenzie as like they basically used this photo to like accuse Mackenzie Kelly and accuse that motorcycle group of being white supremacists, and then the motorcycle guy came and confronted Jimmy at a campaign rally and videotaped it, and Jimmy videotaped it too, and just said that he got like harassed and accosted by Mackenzie and her supporters, and I'm just like, well, dude, that's not that you have no basis of fact to say that on, like, because you have no idea like what Mackenzie's stance in this is.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the problem that we see a lot is that video can be manipulated. I know we're video recording right now. It can be manipulated very easily. Yeah. I've been in the business for a long time and I've seen lots of stuff happen, right? Where I'm like, we need to edit out this word, and it's not that hard, It's
not that hard.
And so you got to, they used to say believe none of what you hear and half of what you see, right?
Yeah.
And so now you got to be extra careful because stuff can get manipulated. So if you have a problem or an issue, I think you should try to like figure out who you could talk to that like be as direct as possible. Like, if you said something that I was like, what did you mean by that? Or if I heard you had said something and, you and I are friends and I'm like, yo, tell me what you meant by this, because I would give you the benefit of the doubt.
Of course. And that's what I always try to do. Like, even when I like respond like on Twitter, I'm like, well, this is how I feel about this situation. Like,
based on your experience,
right?
Like
Flanagan supporter on Twitter, name's like Christine or something. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's just Jimmy doing another account, right? But like,
maybe.
She basically like posted this meme, right?
Yeah.
Saying it takes a really heartless person to like want to punish homeless people, and I'm like, it takes a really heartless person to close small businesses and tell people they can't work without a plan to pay them to.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it's a two-way street.
Yeah, you can come at it any way you want. And that's
but when you say shit like that and you try to like communicate based on emotionality, you foster division.
Yeah, I know 100%, and that's the problem. And the bubbles are the problem. You know, if you're fear based and you're basing everything on, you know, a decision you'd make in duress, right? How can you think clearly? It's like, but we're talking about, you know, when we're talking about small businesses and we're talking about things of that nature, it's like those are important too, and people seem to like push those to the wayside.
100%. Hey, before we go, Alexis, do you think voter fraud occurred?
I do not think voter fraud occurred. I'm sorry, I'm not buying into that one. I don't. I think that, you know, I have seen and heard of things happening in the past where voter suppression, my grandparents had to pay a poll tax to vote. I think you and I talked a little bit about that.
We did. I think we may have, yeah.
And it was $5, but a shit ton of money back then.
That's
right?
$5, yeah. It's nothing to joke about.
And you know, that shit I think is real. But I don't know. I just don't. Do you?
I'm going to give you my take on this, right?
Okay, yeah, tell me.
So I haven't really gone down the voter fraud rabbit hole too much because I've had a lot of stuff that I've been trying to work on and do. And, you know, I haven't looked into Dominion voting system. I haven't looked into Smartmatic. I haven't looked into any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that Twitter, Facebook, Google, every single multinational tech company manipulated their algorithm to suppress harmful information about their preferred candidate. And that is voter fraud and voter suppression in a different way. So do I think that like actual voter fraud occurred at the polls? I have no idea. But do I think that voter fraud occurred leading up to this election by these tech companies to censor certain people?
I think information,
and give Joe Biden a very fraudulent path to victory? Yeah, 100%, 150%.
That's interesting.
Like I will die on that horse. And this goes back to the Democratic primaries. We're not even talking about the general election too. They had whistleblowers come out and say that they like deliberately silenced and chose not to interview or talk about Andrew Yang for more than a certain period of time.
Interesting.
So this isn't just like to sabotage Trump. They sabotaged everybody. It was like it felt as though there was a massive voter suppression and electioneering campaign to push specifically Joe Biden into office.
That's very interesting. My take is that a lot of people were pissed at Trump and were like even his supporters.
Yeah, but that's also because of electioneering.
I don't know, man.
Listen, when I was, I knew a lot of people that were like super far left too, right? Because I was from being in politics and doing all that stuff. Like I was friends with like a lot of these like super like communist socialist people as well, right? Like I tried to have like a
and they don't like him either, right?
Huh?
They don't like Biden either, right?
No, they hate him. That's what I'm saying. Like all these Bernie bros hated Biden, and a lot of them were saying, if Biden gets the nod, we're sitting out. We're not voting.
Yeah.
We're staying home.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden these BLM protests start happening throughout the entire summer, and a lot of these people went from, hey, I'm staying home to I'm holding my nose and I'm voting for Biden. So yeah, I do think that there was a lot of like electioneering and a lot of manipulation going on around to get their preferred
at the
candidate
level
of choice
at
in
the
office.
level now, right? At the level now that they can, I mean, I wouldn't disagree that information bubbles have been penetrated, but or saturated. But I don't know. I don't feel like I feel like we had great voter turnout, and I feel like people on both sides were like, I'm going to show up. Listen, I've never missed an election ever in my life. I'm almost 50. I've been voting since I was 18, and I don't understand people who don't vote. I just don't.
No, I understand. If you're not informed, you shouldn't vote if you're not informed.
Yeah.
I think yeah, you should vote if you're informed on what you're voting on. Because that's why people voted. That's why the rail bond passed, because people were not informed as to what the consequences were.
Well, it's like the time when they were like, income tax for the state, yes is no and no is yes. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, people are not informed. Like,
you got to understand. Like, you had to know. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, or they don't understand the implications, or someone didn't do a good enough job. Telling them.
You look at our developer-friendly council. Half the people that voted for these developer-friendly council members probably heard some progressive buzzwords and associated them with progressivism. I remember 2 years ago when Beto was running for Senate, like Pia Renteria, like I think it was like Natasha or a couple of other candidates, maybe Paige Ellis. They all jumped on the Beto bandwagon to make it seem like they were like progressive and about working people. And it turns out Beto isn't about any of that shit, right? But
no comment on Beto.
But people thought he was at the time, because he did a very good job of branding himself that way, and he was a good campaigner, and he was an extremely hard worker. You can't take that away from him.
Yeah.
But all these pro real estate, pro developer candidates, they jumped in the Beto bandwagon and associated themselves with Beto. And then they had that Prop J land code, which gave the Prop J ordinance, which gave people a right to vote on their own land code. And you know what they said about Prop J to get people to vote against it?
What?
They said, don't Trump Austin. So that's what I mean. Like, if you're not an informed voter, you shouldn't vote. You should vote if you're informed about what you're voting on.
But what if the information you're getting is from your bubble?
Expand your bubble. That's what this podcast is for.
That's right.
Anyway,
Expand
Alexis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, Alex.
All right.